What is up, guys? Anime Logician here, and today we're going to be doing a tier list. This tier list is going to be based on the winter anime season of 2024, and I know this video should have been done about 6 months ago, but again, I'm catching up to anime as a lot of things have been going on in real life, but I'm basically behind about a season or two, so I'm catching up to that as fast as possible. Currently I'm only watching about 15 animes per season instead of 20 because trying to watch 20 anime titles in about 3 or 4 months is really, I would say, focus heavy, and that's something I'm probably gonna be able to do once I catch up to the newer season. But at this point, I'm just having to watch about 15 anime titles until that happens. So forgive me for the decrease in anime titles that are being watched and rated. But hopefully we get back on track. And with that being said, let's get started. So first off, we got Solo Leveling. To me, this was pretty good. I would say it was almost perfect, but I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. There was a lot of hype behind this anime, and a lot of people loved it, and some people despised it. I don't know why people hated it. It was just some people didn't like it, you know? It's like how, as of now, it seems that shonen anime is actually being overthrown by fantasy or isekai animes, and it makes sense, you know? Shonen's been popular for the last 10 plus years, and it makes sense. Shonen had its time, mecha had its time, but times changed now, and I'm gonna say Solo Leveling was a 9 out of 10 just because it's nothing really special. Yeah, it was originally made in Korea because it came from an adapted version of a manhwa into an anime, but that's pretty much it, aside from the fact that for a shonen it's slightly a bit darker compared to your whole plot armor and friendship type deal thing. Next up, we have Classroom of the Elite. I don't know. I found this to be perfect just because we're now getting deeper into the character behind Ayano Koji and the relationship with his father. Ayano Koji is extremely intelligent, and of course, the guy is obviously using people to his advantage, kind of like Sosuke Aizen, if you will, to reach his end goal, basically. I'm not sure if it's because he's trying to prove a point or because he's just doing this because he can, but we're at a point where his character is very deep and mysterious, and we're getting some inclusion of other characters as well from the past seasons that we didn't get to see. So that's why I'm finding this to be really perfect, you know? Some people say it's kind of like a generic anime, which I don't see. I mean, generic to me is something that's just like average on all parts of the anime, whether it's character development, animation, plot, intro, outro, whatever. Next up, we have Mashle, and this is going to be an 8 out of 10. Honestly, I love Mashle. It's a really great anime, but for me, it's almost as if there isn't really much change aside from the fact that it's a comedy anime. You know, there isn't much character depth in a comedy anime because it's an anime that doesn't really take itself all that seriously. So in the end of it all, it's like Mashle is basically he's basically the joke of like, let's say he looks like Saitama. A lot of people say he's basically Saitama with hair, even though Saitama had hair before he lost it when he became stronger. But it's basically just that he's a strong, young, and he's basically a version of Saitama with hair. That's pretty much it. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, it's a funny anime. I like it, but that's just pretty much it. The intros and outros are bangers, though. I will give them that. Next up, we have Delicious in Dungeon, and this was a really great anime. I'm gonna say it was perfect. I loved it. I enjoyed watching it. I do love fantasy animes, as I'm a huge fan of Dark Souls and many other types of things, such as World of Warcraft and all that jazz. And overall, I felt this had a lot to do with just going into a dungeon, uh, devouring monsters, making food out of them, and then saving uh, the sister of one of the main characters. So this was actually really enjoyable. Next up, we have A Sign of Affection. This, okay, so I'm gonna say this, but the fact that that one of the characters here, the female main character, is deaf, and she can't really understand people because she can't hear them. I find that interesting because it reminds me of another anime movie that was also really interesting, and I loved it. Honestly, I want to say I'm not sure if I want to give this a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 just because I love the anime itself. I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. I don't know. I just loved it. I couldn't stop watching it. I had to watch it and finish it. It was just that good of an anime. Next up, we have The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. This was pretty good, but I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a fan of the whole reincarnation idea of how in the beginning this guy had reached his maximum potential, but the only difference was his teammates didn't, which is why they lost the final battle to a dragon who they were supposed to defeat, but now they were basically reincarnated because the main character somehow was reincarnated or traveled back in time to fix everything. And essentially, he is a healer, but he uses healing in a way where it's kind of like damaging an enemy and kind of not. So he can basically heal himself and damage the enemies with his physical strength, which is interesting because I've never really seen a character that could actually heal people by punching them as well as hurting people while punching them. So it's kind of an interesting aspect or concept of this character and the anime overall. But I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 because I don't really see it much different than anything else aside from that concept alone. Next up, we have The Dangers of My Heart Season 2. This is automatically a 10 out of 10. I'm gonna say this, and this is a fact. The Dangers in My Heart is honestly one of the best animes I've seen since, I want to say, Kaguya-sama Love is War. And with both animes being rom-coms, it makes sense. I'm a huge fan of rom-coms. The fact that I actually find The Dangers in My Heart being on par with Kaguya-sama Love is War shouldn't be surprising. I'm pretty sure everyone will agree with me on that as well. Next up, we have Chained Soldier. So this was 50-50 for me. So imagine a shonen anime with, I guess, a lot of fan service. And at that point, it's kind of hard to tell what this anime is. Is it a shonen? Is it a harem, an ecchi, whatever? Is it full of fan service? Is it action-packed? It's like watching two animes at the same time, and you're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. But at this point, it's like it doesn't even matter. You're just trying to watch the anime for what it's for, and that's pretty much it. But I'm gonna give this basically a should I give it a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10? I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10. It wasn't really noteworthy of anything, and again, it's like you're watching two animes at the same time. The plot or the characters themselves just change from left to right, and it's just not really that great of an anime. Next up, we have Hokkaido Gals Are Super Adorable. So basically, this is about a guy who is basically a nobody. Can't really attract anyone because, well, he's your average guy, nothing really special about him. And yeah, he moves to Hokkaido, and he magically becomes attractive, and it's like, okay, I know I've seen this a lot of times, but it's, I want to say it's slightly better than this. This is slightly better than this because the focus is on one part of the anime and the plot itself. This anime over here is just like it's like jumping left and right. It's going over hoops 1 and 2, and it's just trying to be two things at once to the point where it kind of ruins the anime. Next up, we have Seventh Time Loop. The villainess enjoys a carefree life married to her worst enemy. So this was somewhat interesting, while at the same time kind of boring. The main character, the main female character, basically is at war with the main male character here, and it gets to a point where she fails her mission over and over and over again, and it's like a time loop. She goes back in time only to be defeated all over again. She tries to figure out what it is, and she even tries to change up her strategy or her stance on how to go through with this fight, and overall she just keeps dying over and over and over again. So the only point, it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Oh, you're just gonna fuck the guy and marry him? Okay, well, that's not really that interesting. I mean, you're gonna accept defeat or else marry the guy? And it's like, of course she's gonna die, but maybe because the guy is just too skilled for her? I mean, at this point, this anime isn't really all that interesting. We're just going into a fact that the girl lost the war for her kingdom and her side, and this guy basically kills her like 7+ times. So I'm gonna say this was pretty average, nothing special about it at all. Next up, we got Gushing Over Magical Girls, and this is going to be a 10 out of 10. Now then, let me explain why that is. When I first got into the magical girl genre, I thought it was pretty great, it was innovative, and it was doing something for women throughout the world, you know? There wasn't really much focus on women within the 90s or the 80s of anime. It was all about karate, martial arts, and all that stuff within like shonen anime and mechas. But when magical girls came out, the genre, women were basically the focus at that point, and they were much more involved with anime than they were back then. Why I'm gonna say this is a 10 out of 10 anime is because it basically innovated something that no other magical girl anime has done, and that was basically introducing tons and tons of fan service, as well as having every new episode show a different kink for that anime. In one episode there was binding and whipping, and then in one episode it was basically embarrassment and all that stuff, you know? Essentially, it is something new. I'm not gonna say it's something that most people are gonna say, oh, it's my cup of tea, because most people aren't into animes that show a lot of fan servicey things. And I'm a guy, and this anime also was labeled under the genre of LGBTQ, which I'm assuming this was made for lesbians? Just gonna say that. Maybe lesbians like the anime, maybe they don't, I don't know. I don't know any lesbians that would actually vouch for this, so to me, it was innovative. It did something else that no other magical girl anime could do, or has done, and that's why I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. Next up, we have Villainess level 99. I may be the hidden boss, but I'm not the demon lord. This is going to be, I'm gonna say above average. It wasn't that interesting. It was interesting for a while, but then it just became to the point where it was somewhat dull and continuous with the plot. I mean, the whole point was where the main character herself doesn't focus on dating any of the three main characters, the three characters she can basically date or fall for, and her main goal is to basically become strong enough to where she doesn't become the enemy to the main character, but helps the main character alongside defeating the demon lord. Why I gave the anime a 6 out of 10, because it just feels repetitive and it gets dull around like episode 5, episode 6. It's nothing special, really. Next up, we have The Foolish Angel Dances with the Devil. This was just terrible. I don't know why. If anyone likes this, I don't know. Maybe give me a comment down below. Tell me why you like this. I don't know why. It's just really terrible for me. I just did not enjoy the anime overall. It felt that the anime was going nowhere. There wasn't really a plot to it. It was just like a dumb anime, like one of those animes you just sit through and you're just like, I got absolutely nothing out of that, but it gave me the time to be at peace with myself, you know? It's like one of those brain dead animes where you're like, oh, I'm just gonna watch it to pass the time, or, you know, to not focus on anything because my brain hurts. So it's like, to me, really terrible. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was really bland, really boring, just irrelevant. And then next up we have High Card Season 2. Yes, I watched High Card Season 1 back when, you know, no one knew what the characters were or their names. And essentially people were like, oh, the characters aren't that important. You know, they don't really go into depth with these characters. So I feel like Season 2 did slightly better, which is why I'm going to say it's a 7 out of 10. But still, it's not something I would buy for a DVD or a Blu-ray set for my anime collection. I'd recommend watching it, but I'm not going to say go buy it because that'd be ridiculous. And then next up we have The Way of Pon. Now then, so this anime, nothing really special about it. I feel that when they're playing a game, a board game, and people want to get into said board game, this is not the anime you want to watch. This anime, it's, again, another brain dead anime to where you could just want to waste your time watching it and just kill time, whatever. They're essentially playing a board game, or not a board game, but I forgot the name of the game, but it's a game from Japan, and essentially people got into the anime because they figured, oh, if this anime is about this game, then maybe I can learn about the game while watching this anime and then get better at said game, right? No. Essentially, the anime doesn't even give out the basics of the game itself. It's just one of those things like, oh, I'm gonna watch this and see if it's good. Oh, it's not good because there's no interaction with much of the game itself. It's just a bunch of girls who make a game club and they play this one game, and it kind of goes nowhere. It just talks about their daily lives in that club and the basics of said game. So I mean, if you're into brain dead anime, I'd say watch it, don't watch it, whatever, but I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10. I don't know, it was just so boring for me. I could not finish it. I just did not want to finish it. It was just that boring. Now let's go back and check things out. So essentially we're gonna go through here and see which animes are better. So for between these two, I'm gonna say The Way of Pon is much better than The Foolish Angel Dances with the Devil. This was just all out horrible. This was just pointless. Next up we have Seventh Time Loop and Chained Soldier. I'm gonna say this is much better than this because this is basically watching two animes at the same time. You know what? No. I'm gonna fix this. 4 out of 10. This was just so horrible. Not horrible like these two anime, but horrible to the point of like, where are you even going with this anime, and why does this exist? What is the point of this anime? You're basically watching two animes at the same time. One that's action filled and one that's full of fan service, and it's like, well, what are you? Are you action, or are you titties and a bunch of ass shots, my dude? Essentially, I did like the Seventh Time Loop anime for what it was, but it lost me because it started getting dull and boring. But even then, this is better than this. As for these two, this was just average because it wasn't anything special. It was just your average anime of, oh, nobody guy who's average moves to Hokkaido, and it's like, oh my god, all these girls now fall for me out of nowhere. What am I supposed to do? As where this was just, it got slightly repetitive to the point where I was bored of watching it, and I don't know. This, I would say, was slightly more interesting than this. Wait. No, 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 no. Let me fix this. Let me fix this. There we go. There we go. This was a lot better than this, but not by much. And then High Card essentially was memed because no one knew or remembered what the characters' names were. They were just like, oh, that's Long Shotty, or that's Go-Go Gadget Pistol Fuck, or whatever, because, like, they weren't that in-depth and they weren't really important. So, again, the anime did get slightly better, but not by much. As for these two, Mashle is way much better than The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. I'm just gonna say that right now. I loved Mashle. It was an interesting anime. It was funny, and the intros and outros were amazing. This had some fan service. The plot was interesting, and the concept behind the hero's power was pretty genius. But I don't know. Something down the line, maybe the execution wasn't done correctly, which is why I wouldn't say the anime is perfect, but it is what it is. Solo leveling. Had it been slightly much better, it would be up here with these other animes, but it was not, and therefore, it's a 9 out of 10. Now to rate the 10 out of 10 anime on which was the best. Like I said, this was very genius. This was very inventive. Like, I don't even see why people hate this anime, aside from the fact that it's kind of like fan servicey and a bit weird. But there was a lot to be done with this anime, which they did. And the fact that they didn't go down the generic rabbit hole of magical girl anime kind of tells you that they did something very innovative with this anime. I'm gonna say this goes up here. The Dangers of My Heart, all the way up here. This, I actually found this interesting. Between these two, I like the fact that this is more action-packed and the characters have a lot of depth to them, as where this does have some action, but essentially you're watching a show where the main point is they're trying to save the sister of the main character, and they're basically going through a dungeon of monsters that they are eating. So, I mean, that all depends on the person, but I think this is slightly more interesting than this. This right here, yeah, I think this is perfect. This is definitely perfect. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And I'm sorry if this video did seem rushed. Like I said, I'm trying to catch up on a lot of things. I'm trying to catch up on the newer season of anime. I'm trying to watch as much as possible. And currently right now, I am basically running on about an hour of sleep till I have to go to work. So, yeah, just a lot of things having to deal with music production. Soon I'm going to drop an EP for anyone who's into electronic music, whether it's dubstep, trance, progressive house, whatever. I'm also trying to focus on my studies so I can get a better job and, you know, do better in life, yada, yada, yada. All the hustle and bustle and the grind of the daily life, because we all need money or else we're all kind of screwed. So yeah, see you guys next time, and peace.